When it comes to church planting, is there an advantage to engaging support that you could get, say, from a denomination?
When I joined the Presbyterian Church of Victoria some years ago, I was really encouraged and really thankful for the kind of support that they gave me, and they're willing to fund church planting. And certainly coming out as I did with quite a small starting team, there's no way that we would have got started without kind of the generous denominational support. And knowing that their prayers and their moral support is I think really valuable. To set up a denomination and have it functioning well and having a gospel DNA, that takes years and a lot of energy and a lot of money, and the Presbyterian Church of Victoria has been working at it for many years. Not everything's right, and there's things we need to work on, but the basics, the foundations are there. And to start, when I think about what it would take to start from scratch, it would be just a massive resources and massive amount of energy, which few people are going to be able to do.
So Richard, how did you go about raising the profile of church planting in your denomination?
Yeah, so there was a church planting committee that was set up before I started, and they were given some funds to encourage church planting. But the reality is not much church planting had been going on for a number of years before I came. So the first job really was to plant a church and to try and say, yes, it's possible. And so we worked to plant Valley Presbyterian Church in Doreen. But then once that had got going, it was to try and work out other places where we needed to church plant, and then find the right people, and then work with the local presbytery to put the whole thing together and get something started. And that was more complicated than I originally anticipated. But I think it's one of those things that can build momentum over time, and as people gain confidence in what we're trying to do, I think the Presbyterian Church is probably in a much better place with regard to church planting than what it was 5 years ago, and I think it's moving to even better places for the future. In my wildest dreams, I'd really like us to plant 3 churches every year. Ed Stetzer says unless you've got 3% of your churches as church plants every year, you tend to decline overall as a denomination over time. So that's what we're trying to do. Reality is we're probably only planting about 1 per year over the last 5 years, which is a lot better than we had been doing, but I'm very aware that we need to work out ways to put the foot on the accelerator and move it forward. I certainly address church planting each year at the Assembly. I write in some of the denominational journals. I have met up with various churches that I think could be well placed to maybe support a church plant. I try and meet up with potential church planters who may be interested in working with us. And so it's trying to bring all those things together to make it happen.
What sort of attitudes do you have to have towards the sort of structural problems you might come up against?
Yeah, you've got to be patient. You've got to understand when a decision's being made and where, and who are the key people you need to be talking to, and getting alongside people rather than trying to push through them. And being patient is actually worthwhile. And I think just as I've got to know key people in the denomination, understanding how presbyteries work and how they make decisions and how that relates to decisions made at assembly level and then at local church level. You need to be across that and understand how that works. And so just because I have a great plan to plant a church at place X, I need to make sure that the local presbyteries are just as excited about that, and that we can find the planter who's keen to be part of that as well.
Sounds like patience would be a real virtue.
Yeah. Phil Campbell said to me some years ago that the Presbyterian Church doesn't encourage leadership. It is about teams, it is about networking. That has its strengths, but it doesn't actually encourage perhaps the Anglican model where you have an archbishop charging off in the lead in their ideal world. Yeah.
In regard to church planting with a denomination, you don't just have to make the argument, do you? You actually have to demonstrate the success.
I've really felt that pressure at times at Valley. I mean, God's blessed us and the church has grown, but a couple of years ago we really had a year where we plateaued and we didn't see any growth, and we probably saw a little bit of decline. And you're wanting to say we really need to plant growing churches, and I don't really. Then it's not a great example to be pastoring a church that's that's not doing that. And so, yeah, we've wanted to see it grow. And at the moment, we've kind of set a goal that we won't start building a building until we get to 300. Well, I've never pastored a church of 300. I don't even know if we can grow it to 300, but we're praying and we're working towards that goal, and we're trying to figure out how to do it. But we know that we probably couldn't afford to build unless we get to about 300, and so eventually that's what we'd like to do. Look, I've been really encouraged working at the Presbyterian Church that there are a lot of godly people who've been labouring for many years in Melbourne, have really worked hard to see the church grow. They've in a godly way stewarded resources and finances that can be done to start from scratch. I think sometimes you can be idealistic and think we're all going to be, Bill Gates or something. But the reality is most of us don't have that kind of capacity. Most of us, we underestimate how hard it is, especially I think in Australia, to see a church grow and develop and gather the resources to have a growing staff team, to maybe buy some property. Those things are actually a lot of work and patient perseverance. And so, I think our denominations where they've stuck with the gospel and stuck with God's word, we're hugely blessed to have them. And where we do have them, I think you work with them as best you can.